Welcome back to Brento Cast. This is episode 44. A somber send off to my favorite uncle who passed away today, Rayvon Sheperd. Not exactly sure of his age. I'm sure that I'll be able to update you on that a little bit later. I believe he was 81 or 82. My favorite uncle for a lot of reasons. When I was little, he was always the guy that wanted to entertain the small ones, the kids and whatnot. My dad really loved him, so right off the bat, that made me a really big fan of his. And I'm going to miss him. I realized that we went and saw him. The word has been coming for a couple weeks. He's in hospice, and he's probably not going to make it. And I put it off for a couple days. I'm thankful that he lasted long enough for me to get there. So we visited actually right after our Thanksgiving meal on back on Thursday, the 23rd, and we went over there right after the meal, like I said, and he said he knew who we were. They were saying that he had been in and out of, kind of knowing what was going on and whatnot, but he had broken his back some time ago, and I gathered there was a lot of pain. I know they were treating him with morphine, and hospice was involved and stuff, and of course he's completely bedridden, and I didn't really have it in me to talk to him because it just didn't seem like he was all there, and I didn't say a whole lot, but I did get to see him, and I'm really glad that I did. The last time that I saw him on his feet, he was shopping with my Aunt Bessie at the local Ingles store, and I slipped up behind him and put my arm around him, and he turned around with a big old grin, like he always did, and that's really how I'm going to remember him. He was always, it was never one for the complaining. He was always one for the generally being happy and trying to make sure everybody else was okay. And, if I could, at the end of the road, be half as loved as he was or my dad, I would have done something. I would have done a really good job, being that person that always had empathy for others and always worried about others' well-being. And that's just kind of how I think of him. Really, really nice guy. I mean, to say a nice guy just seems like everybody's a nice guy. This fellow was really nice, a good person, a great man. He will be incredibly missed. When I think about him, I think about being a little kid, and I had a very idealistic Norman Rockwell upbringing, thanks to my dad and my mom that adopted me and my brother. And I had a couple of Aunt Bessie was one of my favorite aunts, and Aunt Claire, and it went back and forth because Aunt Claire never had children, and at times, she would want to keep other kids, her sister's kids, and other folks, and she would tend to really, put the gifts on you and stuff, and you get special treatment. I remember, like, when I got to spend the night at my Aunt Claire's, that was the first time I ever got to sleep in the bed with a dog. She had a really cool poodle, a little bit. I think there was a series of little bits, actually. But Aunt Bessie, because she was more like my mom to me, or she is more like my mom to me, and she had two boys, as my parents have two boys. So I just felt a little bit, just closer because we had that in common, that commonality. But Uncle Rayvon was always just the coolest, and I always had a great time. Donnie and Richard, their kids were both the right age for me to essentially idolize them. They were that 4 and 6 years older than us, and they could slam dunk a basketball when we were still just trying to hit the rim, that sort of thing. So it was a good upbringing, and all my times over there, and I had a bunch of them when I was little. Always remembered him. I remember his dad Van, his brother Charlie. They lived across the street from what they called the old home place, and then the original home place was down the hill, and I think that house eventually fell in, but they had a bunch of land over there on Dunlop Road, and it was just a wild and woolly place. My cousins always hunted deer and rode dirt bikes and stuff, and of course I hadn't seen my cousin Donnie until Thanksgiving for many, many years, and I'd like to rectify that and see everybody over there a little more often. It was kind of crazy being back at their house, realizing that, gosh, it must have been over 10 years since I've been to their house. Now, I had been by their house to take Delilah to Richard and Misty's house where she plays with their granddaughter and grandkids and stuff. And I just had not noticed how much Bessie and Rayvon's house had changed. But when I was there Wednesday, I I did note that like the old cornfield at the bottom of their backside of their yard had turned into a fully grown pine forest, and even the field beyond that had turned into a fully grown pine forest. And they had moved their driveway, so now it was like kind of a circle drive, and their old little walkway to the shed had completely, been done away with, and it was just really striking, as much to see my uncle Rayvon like in his, on his deathbed essentially, in his final days, just kind of a shadow of himself. It was just as shocking to see how everything had changed and realize how fast it gets by you. I mean, it really, really gets by you fast. So that's where my mind and heart is at today, and I thought it would be great to go ahead and just get this committed to the podcast. I never know how long these podcasts are going to be, or how long they're even going to be out there and be available. Unfortunately, the other day I noticed that I had an email from Spreaker, and they had deleted one of my earlier podcasts, which, by the way, had been out there for a year, and they decided to delete it. And they said, "Oh yeah, there's music-only content," and I put one of our songs in development at the end of an episode, and somebody complained about it, and it got deleted. And it really kind of irked me because I don't really get to use a whole lot of the functionality. This podcast does not have a lot of listeners, so typically speaking, I am paying for a service that I could essentially get for free if I didn't care about people being able to listen to this on iTunes. I could just as easily archive the thing as a video on YouTube for free. But here I am paying these guys so much, a year to host these for me, and they actually delete it. They didn't silence it; they deleted it. And some of mine I keep backed up on my local hard drives, or I will have like a making of video, like you see on. Well, I'm making a video right now, and the reason I'm doing that, we just came back from like a little one-day vacation, and I had this on hand, this vlogging camera, my Insta360 Go 3. And I just plugged it in because I was just about to dump footage, and I kind of got it on my heart to go ahead and, get this podcast out while it was fresh on my mind and thinking about it. But, you can't sum up a man like Rayvon Sheperd in just a few words or just a few minutes. I mean, he was a lot of things to a lot of people, but I think, a great, great person, a great human being, and maybe I'll deal with this in song at some point in the future. That's what I tend to do. My dad's now gone almost 7 years, and he's inspired a lot of my music. And perhaps I could do something like that. And include Uncle Rayvon and Uncle Rayvon and Aunt Bessie. Man, what can I tell you? They were our go-tos and our favorites as kids. Me and Chris, and I'm just really sad to know that I'm not going to see him again. This side, anyway. This side of the river, perhaps on the other side. But today, I guess when he passed away, my mom and Bessie are pretty close, so she wanted to be with her sister. I, meanwhile, am with Nancy 2 hours away. And I get the call that while she was over there, I guess, spending time with the family and stuff, she ends up passing out in the middle of a sentence, falling, and I didn't get a real clear picture, but fortunately my son was in a position where he could go and make sure everything was okay and whatnot, but I'm still got to sort of sort that out. She's having some issues with her equilibrium, but basically the big takeaway was they wanted her to go to the hospital. Well, she's got to have blood work done tomorrow or the next day anyway for a surgery she's coming. She says she feels fine. She just wanted to take a nap, and I imagine a lot of it is like just overwhelming the emotions and whatnot. And I have noticed she's been a bit off lately as far as her mood, really, And I'll say, is anything wrong? You seem like you're sort of down. And she'll say, well, I'm dizzy. My equilibrium's dizzy. And I'm a little worried for her to be driving. I mean, so far it hasn't affected her driving. It's more like she feels like she needs to sit down all of a sudden. But I don't know. I mean, we might be getting to that place where she might not be able to drive until this sort of subsides. And I don't know what's causing it. And then we've had some other scares with her where she's taken too much medicine. And, of course, she will deny that because she doesn't remember it, and she doesn't know sometimes when she gets her doses wrong. And she's an independent person. She doesn't want you to tell her she passed out. She doesn't believe she did. She doesn't believe she took, the wrong medicine. And that doggone gabapentin, man, I'm not a fan of gabapentin. I know some people say it really helps them, but in her cases, I think it's almost killed her a couple times because she gets the dosages wrong as a result because it takes you out of your natural mind, you know. Although, hopefully, if we can get her through this procedure that's coming up December 5th, a lot of her pain will be gone, and I would love to see a day when she doesn't take any opiates for pain at all. They have their place, but long-term usage wears the body down, particularly the liver. I'm not a medical doctor, of course, but I seem to have seen this with a lot of folks. I mean, they say gabapentin is like, you know, really makes a normal life possible for certain kinds of folks. But as pain management, I don't know. I got my doubts. But, you know, again, these are just my opinions. And of course, if I really believe one thing and my brother really believes another thing, you know, if my mom ever gets a hold of that, there is no convincing her. So she's a little stubborn. But anyway, I'm going to try to make up that episode. I do know the name of it. It was episode 36, post-studio catch-up. I remember that was the... that was probably a lead up to recording the song Providence Road, but I know Ep 39 does mention walking down Providence Road, but I believe I was talking about an earlier segment, and I think we actually had just recorded the basic version of that, episode 36. So episode 35 was April 22nd, 2023, and then I noticed that episode 37 is all the way in June, around June 13th. I typically do about one of these a month, so I'm guessing somewhere around May 22nd. Yeah, somewhere around there. And I'm going, or you know, just mid to late May. I'm going to try to just figure out by looking at the records of the studio what song we were recording, and maybe just do a little bit of a makeup episode with the conceit that, hey, this is to replace episode 36. So the numbers make sense because I've decided I'm going to episode 50. And that will be the end of season 1. The idea having been to have done like almost one of these a week every, you know, for each week of the year. But in reality, I was only doing like one a month, so it took like a couple years to get to this season. But I'm going to format them a little bit different as well. I want to have set music, not just the intro music, but like separational music. And maybe 20 minutes is a little bit on the long side. These are just personal vlogs and updates anyway, for what we were doing. But while we're here and I have you for the next 7 or 8 minutes, I'm going to tell you what this weekend entailed. Apart from losing, you know, my Uncle Rayvon, which is a complete bummer, we decided to get away this weekend, and I'm actually really glad we did because we needed it. Delilah World has been crazy lately, and we... have been burning the midnight oil. It seems like watching her a lot extra lately, and because of that, we thought we would take the opportunity to use up some free Hilton points. So we went down to Florence, South Carolina for a free stay, and we did visit the world famous Buc-ee's, which has opened up in South Carolina now. This is like the franchise that has the largest convenience store in the world in Texas. And it's mega ginormous. So we went to that thinking we were going to see something outrageous, which we did. We should have probably went in the middle of the night. It was too busy on a weekend, but we got there just as the crush was coming. So we did get in. Huge tourist trap, but we wanted some branded merchandise for Delilah and ourselves and stuff. So we got all that. Really cute mascot there. Nice little statue, which I scanned, took some pictures of Nancy at. So on the whole, it was a good experience, but it was just, like I said, it was so crowded. I ran the camera that you're looking at this on, but I had it mounted on a hat, and went through the whole thing, and it was just people, just, you know, just, it was just a slog to get through. But you could kind of see everything was there. So I'm going to show that while another episode is running, probably for the video, perhaps, I don't know. Now, since I got this video, we may not do that, but at some point I'm going to share it on my Rumble channel and my website. Other things, well, let me get through what we did. So we went down, we popped down after work. We left about 4:30 yesterday, got down there about 6:30 or so. Popped out to the, I think it's called Kendrick's. It's like a Roses-like store, very 1980s vibe, very cheap stuff, but they have big boy sizes. So we got some stuff there. Went back to the room real quick, threw on our swim stuff, went downstairs, and actually swam in a superheated pool and a jacuzzi. Did a little massage on each other in the jacuzzi. That was nice. The water was fine. I mean, it was fun. We probably spent like 30, 40 minutes in there, so that was great. I was glad we got to do that, considering that this year, the 2 times that we went to $300 a night Duke Inn, which is way out of our budget anyway, for some training up there, those jokers basically just shut down their pool. Not because anything was wrong with it, because they just wanted to say they were working on the maintenance or something, which they weren't. They were working on the heating and air. And I complained bitterly about this last time. I let them know, I was like, hey, dude, we can't afford this, especially if we're coming for this special treatment. And I want to impress my friend Kenny, with dinner there and stuff. So hopefully they were impressed. But I digress. It was not worth the money we spent on it. It was super nice rooms, but we're talking about a different hotel here, different class. It's a 5-star hotel. So this, of course, would be a 3-star hotel at Hilton Garden Inn, which anyone can afford to stay at. And they're cool. But anyway, the whole point system thing, I used to find all that annoying, but now I realize I was like, hey, if you go listen to one, pitch for a condo per year, I think you can do up to 2, but if you do, it's every 6 months. But if you listen to one, you'll wind up with like 4 days and 3 nights of free stay, additional points that will eventually add up and get you free stays. So free is nice. Our accommodation there cost us absolutely nothing. The only thing we spent in the hotel was the $14 breakfast that Nancy bought. But other than that, and I think we bought a couple teas the night before. Other than that, it was great. So we got to leave, and we ended up popping out to Buc-ee's, sorry. And I think we got to Buc-ee's about the next morning. We got to Buc-ee's about, I want to say 10:43, something like that. We were in there about 40 minutes. We went outside, got the pictures and the scan of the little statue of Buc-ee, sorry, and me standing beside him, Nancy standing beside him, that sort of thing. And we go to get out, and I realized people are having trouble. We were going to get the gas there. It was $2.75, which is quite a bit cheaper than here in North Carolina. But I was noticing people were taking like 20, 30 minutes to get through those lines, and they got mega stretches of gas pumps. But again, this is crazy to say. The building there was probably bigger than a football field and a half, and a football field in one direction almost, and a football field and a half maybe in the long direction, and it still wasn't big enough for the crowd that they had on hand. People lately have been talking about it on the internet a lot. It's getting very popular, and that whole franchise is new. The one in, I think, Texas, Galveston, Texas or whatever, is the largest convenience store in the world, and people have just glommed onto that. They got a great-looking brand. There's very 80s nostalgia going in there, but we really couldn't explore the place, and it wasn't as large as I expected. So I get in there, I look, and I can see both, all the walls, and I'm like, not as big as I thought, and all the sections were smaller than I imagined, and also food's a big deal there. Well, it made me, I was going to eat their famous brisket, but it made me like nervous being around all the people, so that took my appetite. So what I ultimately did was decide to save the food. We went back, kind of backtracked to the hotel to eat at Red Lobster. That took quite a long time. Good food, good service, just very slow service. They didn't have enough help. We went from there to Hartsville. We get over to Hartsville. We visit one of our clients that Nancy's friendly with that comes to our detox classes from there. And she had this really cool seersucker gypsy or something like that. It's a kind of a vintage store. Very cool vibe. We're in there, and that's when I get the call about Uncle Rayvon passing away and Mom falling or something. And then I spend the next 15 minutes on the phone. Wound up kind of going outside afterwards and sort of walking around Hartsville in the cold air, just kind of like soaking in for a minute, and being a little sad, But then was able to get Nancy, and we headed on back. We stopped at Cheraw State Park, got a book. We're going to start trying to visit all of the state parks in North Carolina with Delilah and get the book stamped and all this. Picked up a couple of little plushy toys that we really liked from an earlier visit there. There's one called Batty that both Beauty and Delilah love because he's like plushy and double ply wings, and they wrap the wings on them when they sleep or whatever. So I wanted to get another one of those, and I think we got I think we also got an otter. We got another bat, an otter, and a beaver because Chucky is a beaver. By the way, I forgot to mention we got a ton of stuff for Delilah. We even got some stuff for Sophia for their little joint trip, some matching outfits. I got a couple T-shirts, a beanie, and maybe a big mug or whatever to drink out of. And basically, we watched the Karen Nate video on Buc-ee's and tried to go get some of the same stuff. Got some snacks and stuff, and that was really about it. But so we got back here, I guess, about 6:30 ish, and here I am recording this now. So this is going to be the one